Bill Gates said, "I will always choose a lazy person to do a difficult job because a lazy person will find an easy way to do it." What's a real-life example of this? I was working as a stock boy in a supermarket, and when we had to fill the milk cooler, people would bust open a 12-pack of milk cartons and put them in one by one. On my first day, I just placed the 12-pack in the cooler and cut the plastic off on one side with my box cutter and yanked it from under it, and the look of the store manager and the other employee who was training me was pure bewilderment. From that day, everyone did it my way. Start of lockdown, my 9-year-old son was having worksheets emailed to complete at home. One day, left him at the laptop doing his maths while I made some dinner with my 3-year-old daughter. Walked into the living room with his dinner to find him asking the Alexa all of his math questions. Worked as a laborer at a nursery one summer. Daily tasks included manually watering 15,000 plants each day. Put together a back-of-the-napkin plan to build an irrigation system and spent the next few weeks building it with some money from the boss. That system is still running 15 years later and does all the work now. I did automate myself out of the job and had to find another eventually. A couple years later, I got my engineering degree. I'm convinced engineers are inherently lazy people that will spend a disproportionate effort to just make things easier. And that is precisely what engineering is. My brother-in-law spent a whole summer trying to figure out how to fix his sagging deck at the lake, which he could in theory crawl under and jack up. It would have been a tunneling project. It's a 60 by 60 area, all long 2 by 6 boards. Massive. I sat there long enough with enough beers in me to come up with the idea of just cutting a square out of the sagging area about 3 foot by 3 foot, jacking it up, then re-screwing down the boards. He paints the whole thing every spring with a roller anyhow, so it's not like the square cut shows up. He thought I was a genius. I was just lazy. We had to hold a thermometer in water in chemistry class. It probably was only a 20-minute experiment, but your arms got tired after a couple minutes, and you can't let the thermometer touch the bottom of the pan or it won't get an accurate reading. So instead of sucking it up and just holding the thermometer, my lab partner built a contraption out of lab books and paper clips to somehow hold the thermometer in the water without it touching the bottom. It was the stupidest looking thing you would ever see in a lab class, and our professor even walked over and said, "If it looks stupid, sounds stupid, but it works, then it isn't stupid." My lab partner and I joked that he wasn't talking about the contraption, but the intellect of my lab partner. I had a math teacher that actively encouraged his students to be as lazy as possible, defining lazy as actively searching for ways to do as minimal work as possible. His logic was that the way math is now, it could always be simplified and still work the same. Someone just needs to be lazy enough to find that. My favorite math teacher used to say that the best solution is the one you find. Dude, that's why so many people hate the math teachers that want you to do it a specific way, when you can just do it a different way that's easier for you. That's probably easier for most people. I was a paid intern at a large company during one summer back home from college. My work 95% consisted of using SAP, import to Excel, clean data, and generate reports, occasionally create some tools someone needed. In the first 2 weeks after getting a hang of my responsibilities, writing all the Excel formulas needed, and basically automating 99% of my work, I was chilling. I went from actually working from 9 to 5 to maybe 1 hour tops a day. Finding, importing, cleaning, and reporting usually took hours, but with all the formulas, it took 2 minutes of clicking. I then helped the other cool intern get his stuff set up so we could both just chill. We could take 2-hour lunches, paid for by the company, and nobody said anything because we were just getting so much more done than the other interns. Of course, I helped for special tasks when asked, but those were simple 20-minute tasks building something in Excel. Overall, was the easiest and stressless internship of my life. The clerk was asked to bring 145 white papers into the office. He doesn't want to count the papers manually, so he just printed 145 blank sheets and took them in. Smart. He used a machine that counts as one of its functions, but not the primary function, to do the counting for him. It's just enough outside of the box that most people wouldn't think to do it at all. Plus, as a bonus, they're all nice and warm. Man, I love the smell, the feel of freshly printed paper. It's so delicious. That's not the word I'm looking for. One of my favorite examples is Andy Kim, and I'd like to preface this by saying that I don't think Kim is lazy so much as a genius. Andrew was a singer-songwriter who became famous under the stage name Andy Kim. He achieved success writing songs for bands like the Archies, possibly most notably Sugar Sugar. Sugar Sugar bum 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 bum. After his success, he coasted for a while until his record label dropped him for lack of output. At that point, he created his own label and cranked out hits like Rock Me Gently. When they saw this, the big record labels then bought his label under the assumption that they would then profit off of the songs he wrote and performed. He then very shortly after stopped writing songs and largely lived off the sale of his label. Work smarter, not harder. It took me like 3 months, but I automated a data pipeline to extract data, clean it up, and spit it out in an Excel or a PDF format to one of our clients. I walked over to shoot the shit with the lady who handles my client and gives me tasks, and she told me we make $40,000 off them every month for that automated job. I need to go start my own business. When I was in college, I had a job at an Italian fast food place with a reputation for its breadsticks. They came in frozen and needed a bit to thaw, so we'd take a giant 3x4 feet aluminum baking sheet, spread them out in a single layer with no spaces, and cover it with a plastic bag. Then leave it sit in the walk-in overnight. The next day, you'd have to get a pair of tongs and move each stick to a new tray, turning them over, then cover the new tray with the bag, and then let them sit on racks for a couple of hours before brushing on the garlic butter sauce. God, that already sounds so tedious. And it was. This was tedious enough that you'd usually be ready to brush the butter on the first tray as soon as you turned the last tray. I was given this task for the first time one morning and just did not want to deal with it. I realized if I put the second tray upside down on top of the first one, then turned it over and took the first tray out, I got exactly the same result. Blew the boss's mind when I did the 3-hour job in about 15 minutes. I was given a 5-cent an hour raise. 5 cents seems adequate for saving 3 hours each time. Dude, that's like nothing. Oh my god, man. That's not fair. You deserve more. You deserve more. If you like this video so far, please leave a comment, a like, and a subscribe, and all that good stuff. It really helps me out, and I really appreciate it. Thanks, you cool guy. Okay, back to the Reddit. I plug my clocks in at midnight so they're already set. Even further, trip the main fuse in the house at midnight to do all the appliances too. Eating dinner out of the pot so there's fewer dishes to wash. Oh my god, I'm not just lazy, I'm also brilliant. An older company had a person dedicated to data entry, which boiled down to copying and pasting portions of data from text files into spreadsheet and formatting it into a report. The person originally doing this job spent a full 40+ hours a week doing it, but was not very computer literate. When they retired, the company hired someone with actual skills. The new hire convinced management to let her work remotely after getting up to speed on the job. The first week at home was spent automating the entire job. The remainder of their multi-year tenure with the company was spent doing whatever they wanted, save the 10 to 15 minutes weekly to run their program and to answer the odd email here and there, all while getting paid full salary and benefits. They actually had to add in a few errors now and then to make it seem realistic. Oh my god. I've worked in a few places that have people doing this. Usually when they retire, the job is given to some younger person that figures out how to do it in like 10 minutes on top of the rest of their normal job. I worked in a local adult education center. One of my main tasks was to make calculations about how many people enlisted for a course, how many of them got discounts, how many men, women, age, etc. That was needed to calculate upcoming courses, fees, etc. That was my only work there, and I hated it. This was in the early 90s, so PCs were a thing in our offices, but I had no idea how to write a program or use a database to use this information. Lucky as I am, our center had an interesting policy. When you want to educate yourself, you can attend that class for free. And when it's during the work time, and this is work time, as long as my supervisor is okay with that, and she was. So I spent 3 months studying database structures, scripting, coding, all that. I told my tutor what I want to do, and he helped me to write a script that grabs all necessary information from the courses database, copy that into another database, and then I went crazy and wrote code that was insane. I implemented what-if scenarios thanks to filters, At the end, I was able to do all my work that needed 6 hours a day within 15 minutes. I mean, before that, it took an hour to have all the necessary information to have a how many unemployed single parent women does it need to make the costs of the course even. I had everything back then. Now you want statistics, how many single parent disabled foreign women at the age of 80 to 90 are needed for the next 2 years to keep the ornithology course running? Sure, no problem. Clickety click, done. After that, I started the PC in the morning, grabbed all the data, ran my script, was done within 15 minutes, and then I just read the book that I brought from home. At the end of the day, I gave my supervisor several dozens of papers, statistics, predictions, etc., and said, "That was a lot of work," and then went home. My supervisor was super happy with me because I did so much more now and was super productive. I worked goods in for an aircraft manufacturer at a summer job at university. Parts would arrive, we'd open them, and key in all the details into a terminal. That bit was long-winded. I discovered the terminal keyboard had assignable shortcuts, and set up a bunch of them for all the boilerplate such that keying in an item was about 6 keystrokes. Saved myself and my workmate hours every day, which we would spend pranking each other, other warehouse staff, and staff at other sites. This guy saves all that time and he decides to goof off and mess with other people who are manually keying in it. That's so funny. Back in high school, a lot of kids used to walk through this park to get home and to school. A portion of the path went into the woods because it was just quicker than walking the actual trail. At one point in the walk through the woods, you had to go up this small but tedious hill. Nothing major, but it took like 10 seconds of hard work to go up it. You couldn't go around because one side was a small cliff to the creek below, and the other side had dense trees. One summer, a bunch of us got together and decided to just dig through that hill to make it flat. It took like 14 of us 3 good days to get through it. It was a hard 3 days, but it was definitely worth it. Saved 10 seconds of hill climbing every morning and afternoon, 150 plus days of the year. And it wasn't just us, but hundreds of other kids who took the same path every day. Sometimes you need to put in a lot of work so your future selves can enjoy the easy way out. They terraformed the land to save 10 seconds on their walk because they didn't want to walk up a hill. That's amazing. I was invited to my friend's yearly apple picking. It was a full day of apples and kids and filling a truck for cider. I'm lazy and suggested we make the process more efficient with putting tarps on the ground. We managed in 2 hours what historically took all day. We didn't even get to the picnic lunch. Essentially, I ruined apple picking. Walkie-talkies, in every job I've ever had, these things make your day far less labor-intensive if used correctly. Good God, I wish we had these things. Spent 20 minutes of my coffee break at 3 a.m. trying to call the plant in an area with next to no service so they could let me in the building because my dumbass left my wallet inside. Didn't get my coffee either. In Australia, explorers discovered a mountain that was taller than Mount Kosciuszko, which was thought to be the tallest mountain in Australia. Rather than cause confusion by telling everyone a new tallest mountain had been found, they simply named the new mountain Mount Kosciuszko and renamed the original to something else. That is peak laziness. Ha, peak, like mountain peak? Okay, next one. At work, I go through parts and apply 2 different kinds of tape and 2 different kinds of weave. I have finally got the rhythm down, and now I do each part individually and apply everything at once. Everyone else goes through an entire order just applying tape, then goes through it again to do the weave. I ask to use the big table in the back of the shop and just put all the tape and weave tools there, and do all the parts at once. Normal rate for an 8-hour shift is about 1,200, but I can manage 1,800 in a day, going at a nice steady pace. I can get 1,800 going at a steady pace. I've done it before, but I usually don't. Most days I go slow and relax, purposely only making 1,300 to 1,350 or so parts. It's just enough over rate to get my incentive bonus. And thanks to being a hard and fast worker, the uppers leave me alone at my big table in the back. They look the other way when I have an earbud in one ear, and they don't notice that I scroll Reddit or read a lot. I knew a guy who had a low-level data reporting job. He had several daily, weekly work responsibilities, including a bunch of reports that needed quite a bit of tweaking from raw data to finished product. But like I said, low level. We didn't find out until way later, but he had set up macros for each of his major responsibilities where he could. Once set up, he'd just run the macros to do his work, but then he'd smartly hold off on delivering the reports until just a little bit before the deadlines. He'd hit every assignment and was seen as reliable. He also would complain about the workload, so people would leave him with that work. I doubt he did a full hour of work a day after he set up what he did. Eventually, he left the job for one with better pay, but damn, did he work lazy. Also, he was smart not to reveal until the end, because had he told them about it, he would have gotten a pat on the back and would have been given a whole other workload, on top of maintaining those macros, etc. Dude milked that job, not the other way around. I know a guy who did this, but he revealed it. The company shared the macros with all the employees. It made everyone's life easier, but they also got an increased workload. The company made a lot more money, and this guy made none of it. He didn't even get promoted. That's why I haven't said a word. I automate stuff all the time at work to make daily routine jobs more easy. I write manuals with screenshots with arrows indicating where to click or where to fill in what. Whenever I write a manual, I assume that whoever reads it is a complete idiot, so that whenever customers call for the same questions again, I just send them to the online manual I created. No need to type it out again by email or explain it again by phone. I have a friend who is a little slow about finding stuff on a new program on her PC. Screenshots with the pointer in the right spot is so much easier than walking her through it with words. Years ago as a student, I got a job stocking shelves. Guys were carrying the heavy boxes, put them on the floor, and bend each time to pick up the items to put them on the shelves. I was maybe a light 100-pound woman, and carrying the boxes was just killing me physically. So one day I had an idea. I put the box on an old desk chair and rolled it around. No more carrying and no more bending. Funny thing is that instead of doing the same thing, most of the guys called me lazy and kept carrying the heavy boxes, just to prove how strong they were. Now they have special rolling carts to do the job. You were ahead of your time. The entire miscellaneous kitchen tools section at Bed Bath & Beyond. I don't need an avocado slicer, or a lemon squeezer, or an automatic chopper dicer, but lazy old me definitely puts them to good use. My brother gave my oldest nephew $10 a week if he did all of his chores without needing to be told or complaining. One day he gets home early from work and sees the neighbor kid tossing a bag in the trash. He asked him what he's doing, and the kid says he gets $5 a week to take care of a few chores. My nephew outsourced his chores. Outsourcing and child labor? This kid's destined to be Nike CEO one day. Water is super lazy and will literally find the easiest way to go anywhere every single time. Yeah, even if it has to carve through an entire mountain to do so. An engineer spent hours developing a program so they could start the coffee pot from their desk and not have to wait for coffee when arriving in the break room. That's pretty much how the first webcam was created too. Lazy computer engineers wanted to see if there was coffee in the pot. Wait, really? That's so cool. My ex-boss gave me an Excel sheet. 124,000 rows Excel sheet. Had all the company customer data per row twice. In some of those duplicates, there was an error, and she needed me to go over the list one row by row to check for mistakes and mark all the faulty entries I could find. Through 124,000 rows, she wanted me to do that using the arrow down key and my mouse. I thanked her. I sat down, invested half an hour into Google, copy-pasted some parts of the formula, then some parts of that. Finally, I had figured out the formula. I double-clicked the tiny rectangle so that the formula gets applied on all rows. Worked like a charm. I stood up, got myself a coffee, talked to some colleagues, then I went to my boss. She had anticipated that I would need 3 days for this task. When I was back less than an hour later, she thought I hadn't understood the task or maybe had a follow-up question. I will never forget the expression on her face when I told her I was done. There were 6 faulty entries. Imagine doing it that way to find 6 errors. That would be so infuriating. 124,000. Oh my God. There was a manufacturing plant that made toothpaste. One year, for some reason, there ended up being an unusually high number of empty boxes being shipped out. So in order to stop that from happening, the head of the company hired a couple engineers to develop a system to catch any empty boxes so they didn't get shipped with the boxes that actually had the toothpaste tubes in them. The engineers developed a system that if the box weighed below a certain amount, the system would stop and a worker would have to go remove the box and start everything up again. The person in charge loved the idea and implemented it immediately. And right from the get-go, the number of empty boxes shipped dropped down to near zero. The head of the company wanted to go see the system in action, so he goes and visits the plant one day and notices a huge fan right by the assembly line. Very confused as it wasn't hot, he asked the plant manager why the fan was there. The plant manager said the workers were tired of stopping what they were doing to remove an empty box, so they just hooked up a fan to blow the empty box off the scale before the system recognized it was empty and shut everything off. So laziness led to a more efficient and cost-effective plan. My greenhouse's watering system. I would spend an hour per day watering the garden, 30 hours per month. So for $50, I set up a PVC watering system in a few hours. Now I just turn on the spigot and watch while I smoke a joint. My wife and I have a chore list. I'm tasked with vacuuming, which she gloated about not having to do because it's so time-consuming. So I bought a Roomba, and now the house is cleaner than ever, and all I have to do is press a button on my phone. Yeah, you showed her. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe and like, and if you have your own story where laziness came in clutch, please leave a comment and let me know. Thanks for watching. You're pretty cool.